Hello everybody and welcome back. We're back with another week and another wine challenge. This week we've gone for a German Riesling. Now Riesling's a really old grape variety. It's known quite well for growing in cooler climates, so you'll get places like Germany where it's really well known for, the Alsace, various other places as well. Some really interesting ones from places like New Zealand. Now Riesling is quite often used to make slightly sweeter wines, but it can also be used to make a dry, which is what we've got today. So this is a dry Riesling, and when you go for a dry Riesling, it'll tend to come out as a leaner style of wine. So as with most whites, I've had this chilling for a small while and I'm just going to crack on with the tasting. So cheers. So S number 1 is C, so I'm going to start by pouring myself a measure. Now it's quite pale in colour, I can see, and it's definitely yellow, but maybe with a slight greenish tinge to it. Not 100% sure, definitely a bit more yellowish, but yeah, definitely a paler coloured wine. So S number 2 is sniff. I'll give it a quick preliminary smell. So it's definitely smelling a little bit lighter, a little bit sharper. I definitely think it's maybe a little bit more kind of citrusy in scent, but I'm not getting too much more from that first sniff. So let's try and open it up a little bit more. So we'll do S number 3, so we'll swirl. So really get that air in, open up the smell, and back into S number 4. So S number 4, sniff again. It's definitely opened it up slightly. I'd say definitely more like kind of lemony, if I'm thinking citrus fruits. Perhaps a little bit of like a really tart green apple smell as well. I'd definitely say it's very crisp and very fresh, refreshing kind of smell to it. I'm not sure that I'm really getting much else from in there, so I'm just going to jump straight ahead and go to S number 5 and favourite S, of course, sip. Cheers. Just let that coat my tongue. It's definitely got high acidity to it, but the first thing I noticed, it's got a very light kind of, almost like a slight spritz to it, just a teeny bit of like a tingle. I mean, the acidity is coming through there. I'm going to go back in for another sip now that I've coated my taste buds. Yeah, I'm definitely getting a little sparkle to it. I'd say still I'm very much along the lines of almost like lemons and green apples, and that was what I was getting on the nose, definitely. It's very kind of refreshing and fresh. It's got a decent finish to it, but it's not a super long finish. It doesn't linger on my palate for too long. There's almost like an underlying other taste in there that I'm not 100% sure what it is that I'm getting. You know, it's maybe something a little bit juicier in the background, but it's kind of hard for me to pinpoint, hard for me to tell. There's almost like there's that juiciness. There's this kind of underlying taste. I mean, you've got sort of an underlying juicier taste, but also like an underlying sort of almost feels like a textured taste, and I really can't pinpoint it. If I was going to hazard a guess, and I've mentioned this before because I kind of struggle with this a little bit, the whole minerality side to wine and kind of understanding that and being able to recognise that as a flavour, but I'd maybe say there's a bit of minerality to it. I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like a taste or a texture that the wine kind of leaves behind. I don't know if that makes any sense whatsoever, but it is lovely. It's very fresh, very refreshing. I like the light kind of spritz that it's got to it. I like the kind of sharpness that it has to it. It's definitely got quite a high acidity in there. It's very fresh. It kind of wakes you up a little bit. Yeah, really nice. I can imagine this being the kind of thing that definitely on a warm day, as we've been having a lot of recently, a nice hot day, that kind of, it would uplift you, it would like perk you up almost. So I think that's pretty much most of what I'm getting from it anyway. So I'm going to have a little look at the tasting notes, see what it is that we're looking for. So it says here, this delicious Riesling is from the Pfalz wine region and reflects the lime reefs of the prehistoric ocean that bordered the area, creating Kalkstein, which is limestone. Rich soils that bring crisp minerality to the grapes. That must have been where that kind of underlying, almost like texture was coming from. You know, when I said about the minerality potentially. It's something that I find a little bit difficult to pinpoint, but it kind of makes sense, especially with it being limestone. Now, I've never tasted limestone, but the idea that it says lime in it kind of makes me think that ties in with a citrusy flavour. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking absolute crap there, but who knows. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, fine spice. I'm not sure that I got any spice from it. I mean, let me know if you did. Minerality and citrus fruit. Yeah, definitely citrus fruit. Pair with green apples. Again, definitely got green apples. And fresh exotic aromas. Not so sure about exotic. I mean, I don't really see lemons and green apples as particularly exotic. But yeah, definitely with the citrus in there. Definitely very kind of lemony, I feel. The palate is filled with stone fruit, peach and apricot. I think that might have been the slight kind of background juiciness that I kind of got from it. I'm not sure whether I'd call it particularly kind of specifically peach or apricot. I suppose maybe a little bit more apricot than peach, but it's not a particularly kind of predominant flavour for me. I definitely was getting more along the lines of that kind of citrus and green fruit, with a distinctively crisp and refreshing finish. Definitely, yeah. It's very kind of uplifting and fresh and, with, for lack of a better word, zingy. Yeah, I'd say it's pretty accurate. I think I wasn't too far off on the description. There's definitely some form of minerality to it, even though I find that quite difficult to place. Citrus fruit, green apple. Not 100% sure on like peach and apricot, but there's definitely a little bit of like an underlying almost like juiciness to it, but it's not really at the forefront, I don't think. Funnily enough, it doesn't mention anything in the tasting notes about that kind of slight fizz or sparkle that I definitely seem to be getting, so I wonder if you're getting it too. Now I'm going to do one of the cheeses that we actually have in the bar for this. And this was paired together for me by George, the bar manager. So I said these two might go quite well together. This is the Nicky Nook. It is a blue cheese, which again you may remember from back when we did. I think it was the Magnoso Crianza, the Rioja that we did. I'm not the biggest fan of blue cheese, but I mean the blue cheese that we do is actually all right. But this one in particular is meant to be very creamy. It's got this gorgeous kind of orange colour to it. And it's meant to be quite rich, so let's give it a go, let's give it a whirl. So I've got myself a chunk of cheese, chunk of Nicky Nook, one of the favourites from the bar if you're visiting the Slaughtered House now that it's open again, and let's give it a whirl. Cheers. Quite pleasantly surprised actually. The Nicky Nook, it has quite a rich flavour to it. Definitely got a bit of that blue cheese kind of undertone that you have, you know, running through it. Very distinctive flavour, but it's really creamy, and again with the crispness and the freshness and the citrus coming from this wine, which is very kind of the wine almost kind of cancels that out, kind of cuts it through a little bit. I think often when you have a really sharp wine like this, maybe something a little bit creamy that it can cut through works quite well. Either that or something really, really simple, which is going to let the wine kind of sing. So the saltiness from the cheese has this nice effect of kind of taking away just a little of the acidity from the wine, which allows the fruit to kind of come out a little bit more, maybe leaning a little bit more towards like the green apple side of it rather than the citrus. It kind of detracts from that kind of really sharp acidity a little bit, which makes for quite a pleasant combination really. When looking at other kind of foods and stuff that would work really well for this wine, you've got a lot of very simple foods. So things like vegetables, like a Mediterranean, maybe like a ratatouille or something. Something that's not too heavy, it hasn't got like loads of like sauce or anything with it. It's sort of, you know, fresher, maybe like salted and, you know, lightly kind of seasoned vegetables. You've obviously got the classics for white wine, things like, you know, your fish and your chicken. Also lighter kind of pasta dishes, maybe something with like a really light, a light cream sauce, maybe like a salmon with a little bit of cream and a little bit of pasta. That would work really nicely with this. But one which is a little bit unusual, which I only just kind of found out from doing a bit of research, is sushi as well. Apparently sushi works quite well. Don't know how you feel about raw fish, but I quite enjoy it, and yeah, I can kind of understand how that would work together, especially if you're using fish which has a little bit of a kind of salt content to it. All in all, a very enjoyable wine. It would be interesting to maybe try a sweeter Riesling as well to kind of compare the two against each other. Because obviously this one's quite a dry one, you've got the citrus fruit and everything like that. I wonder what it would be like with that little kind of residual sugar going on in there as well. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you've tried a sweet Riesling as well. It'd be interesting to see how this compares to that. And we'll be back next week with a proper French classic from Provence, and we're going for a Provence rosé. So if you like your very kind of like crisp, fresh rosé wines, that should be a good one for you. I've had 1 or 2 Provence rosés before and really enjoyed them, so I know that we've got a really good bottle for next week. But until then, enjoy the rest of your bottle, enjoy the gorgeous weather, and I'll see you soon. Cheers!